3 days had passed since Charlotte received the frightening message. You should have stayed away. Since that night, Charlotte had barely slept. Every time her phone vibrated, her heart jumped. Every time a car slowed down outside Chief Maduka's residence, she looked toward the gate. And every time she remembered the notebook they had discovered in the hidden property, one question continued to trouble her. Why was her name written inside it? She had escaped from Mama G months ago. She had believed that painful chapter of her life was finished. But now she understood something. Mama G had not forgotten her. Someone had been keeping records. Someone had been watching. And somewhere in Lagos, a man known only as the chairman was still moving quietly in the shadows. But Charlotte had made up her mind. She was no longer going to run. Not while there were other girls who might still be trapped. Not while Grace was missing. Not while Blessing's family was still waiting for their daughter. And not while Mama G was still free. This time, Charlotte was determined to face the darkness that had once nearly destroyed her life. But she didn't know that the search ahead of them would be far more difficult than they had imagined. Because finding Mama G would be one problem, finding the girls would be another, and discovering who the chairman really was would become the greatest mystery of all. The following morning, Charlotte walked into Chief Maduka's office. Isaac was already there. Several files were spread across the large wooden table. There were photographs, documents, phone records, property information, and handwritten notes. Chief Maduka sat quietly, studying everything. Charlotte walked toward the table. "Good morning, sir." Maduka looked up. "Good morning, Charlotte." She sat down. For a few seconds, nobody spoke. Then Charlotte asked, "What have we found?" Isaac picked up one of the files. "We have confirmed that Mama G was connected to several properties." Charlotte nodded. "How many?" "At least 4 that we know of." Her eyes widened. 4? Isaac nodded. "And we're still investigating." Maduka leaned backward. "What about Grace?" Isaac shook his head. "We haven't located her yet." Charlotte's face fell. "What about Blessing?" "We're still searching." Charlotte looked down at the table. "So we know where Mama G has been operating, but we don't know where the girls are?" Isaac nodded. "Not yet." Charlotte clenched her fingers. "We have to find them." Maduka looked at her. "We will." "But how?" Maduka remained calm. "We don't rush this." Charlotte looked confused. "Why?" "Because whoever is behind this knows that we are investigating." Isaac added, "If we move carelessly, they could relocate the girls." Charlotte became silent. She knew they were right. If Mama G discovered that the authorities were getting close, she might disappear. And if the girls were still somewhere under her control, they could be moved before anyone reached them. Maduka stood. "We need evidence." He pointed at the documents. "We need locations, names, vehicles, phone numbers, and financial connections." Then he looked directly at Charlotte. "And most importantly, we need to keep you safe." Charlotte nodded. "I understand." But deep inside, she was already thinking about Grace. The frightened voice, the crying, the sound of a man shouting in the background, and the sudden silence after the call ended. Charlotte couldn't forget it. Later that afternoon, Isaac received a phone call. He listened for several minutes. Then his expression changed. He ended the call and walked into Maduka's office. "Sir, we may have something." Maduka looked up. "What?" "We found someone who used to walk around one of Mama G's properties." Charlotte immediately stood. "Who?" "A former driver." Where is he? He's afraid. Maduka nodded. Bring him. A few hours later, the man arrived. He looked nervous. He kept looking toward the windows. Maduka noticed. You are safe here. The man sat down. I don't want my name involved. We understand. The man took a deep breath. I drove for one of the businesses connected to Mama G. Charlotte listened carefully. What did you see? The man hesitated. Girls. Charlotte's heart sank. How many? I can't say. But you saw them? Yes. Where were they going? He looked down. Different places. What kind of places? Some houses, some unfinished buildings. Charlotte leaned forward. Why? The driver looked at her. Because nobody would look for them there. Silence filled the room. Maduka asked, Do you know where they are now? The man shook his head. Not exactly. Then what do you know? He hesitated again. Some of them were taken to a place they called the farm. Isaac frowned. The farm? Yes. Where is it? The man mentioned an undeveloped part of Lagos. He described a rough road, empty plots, unfinished buildings, and thick vegetation. Maduka wrote everything down. Then he asked, Is there anything else? The man swallowed. There is one building. What building? I don't know the address. What does it look like? A small metal gate behind another abandoned building. Charlotte's eyes narrowed. Does it have a gate? The man nodded. A small metal gate. Maduka looked at Isaac. Find it. The investigators went to the area the following morning. Charlotte stayed behind initially because Maduka didn't want her unnecessarily exposed. But when the investigators returned with photographs, Charlotte immediately recognized the surroundings. I've seen this. Maduka looked at her. Where? On Mama G's phone. She pointed at one of the photographs. This road. Then another. That wall. Then she pointed toward a distant structure. And that building. Isaac looked at her. Are you certain? Yes. Maduka became serious. Then we go back. This time, they carefully examined every part of the area. There were several unfinished houses. Some had no roofs. Others had weeds growing through the windows. There were abandoned vehicles and piles of building materials. At first, they found nothing. Charlotte became discouraged. Maybe they're gone. Maduka shook his head. Don't assume that. Then, one investigator noticed something. Fresh tire marks. The ground was muddy from recent rain. Most of the surrounding areas had old footprints, but these tire marks were fresh. They followed them. The tracks disappeared behind an unfinished building. There was a narrow passage. At the end was a small metal door. The door looked old, but the lock was new. Everyone became silent. One investigator stepped closer. He knocked. Nothing. He knocked again. Still nothing. Then they heard something. A faint sound. Charlotte's heart stopped. What was that? Everyone listened. There it was again. A voice. Very weak. Help. Charlotte covered her mouth. There is someone inside. The investigators immediately secured the area. They opened the door. And what they saw left everyone speechless. There were girls inside. Some were sitting on thin mattresses. Some were standing. Some looked exhausted. Others looked frightened. One girl immediately started crying. Another covered her face. A third girl simply stood there as though she couldn't believe someone had finally come. Charlotte stepped forward. It's okay. Nobody moved. It's okay. We're here to help you. Then one girl looked directly at her. Are you Charlotte? Charlotte froze. Yes. The girl began crying. "My name is Grace." Charlotte rushed toward her. "Grace?" They embraced. Grace held Charlotte tightly. "I thought nobody would come." Charlotte fought back tears. "We came." Grace cried against her shoulder. "They kept telling us nobody knew where we were." Charlotte looked around. "How many of you are here?" Grace looked behind her. "There are more." Charlotte became confused. "More?" Grace nodded. "Some were moved before you came." "Where?" "I don't know." Charlotte looked at the investigators. They immediately began documenting the location. The girls were brought outside one by one. Some needed medical attention. Some were too frightened to speak. Some kept asking about their families. "Can I call my mother? Is my father still looking for me? Will they take me back?" Charlotte kept reassuring them. "You are safe now." But even as the girls were rescued, Charlotte knew something was wrong. Mama G wasn't there, and neither was the chairman. After receiving medical attention, Grace sat with Charlotte. Her voice was still weak. "How did you end up there?" Grace looked down. "I thought I was coming to Lagos for work." Charlotte listened. "Who brought you?" "Mama G." "What did she promise you?" "A job." "What kind?" "She said I would work in a hotel." Charlotte closed her eyes briefly. It sounded painfully familiar. Grace continued. "When I arrived, she collected my phone." "Why?" "She said she wanted to register me." Charlotte knew what came next, but she didn't. Grace shook her head. "They took me somewhere else." "How long were you there?" "I don't know." "You don't know?" I stopped counting the days. Charlotte felt tears gathering in her eyes. Grace looked at her. "Sometimes I thought I would never leave." Charlotte held her hand. "You are out now." Grace nodded. Then she whispered, "But there are other girls." Charlotte looked at her. "Where?" "I don't know." "Did you see who took them?" Grace hesitated. "Sometimes there was a man." "What man?" "I never saw his face properly." "What did people call him?" Grace looked frightened. Then she whispered, "The chairman." While the girls were being taken to safety, investigators went after Mama G. But when they reached one of her known residences, she was gone. The house had been cleared, clothes removed, documents removed, funds removed. Even some furniture had been taken away. It was obvious someone had warned her. Isaac looked at Maduka. "She's ahead of us." Maduka shook his head. "Not completely." "What do you mean?" "People make mistakes when they run." And Mama G had made one. Investigators discovered that one of her vehicles had recently been seen in another part of Lagos. They began following the trail. The trail led to another building. It looked ordinary, a small office, nothing suspicious. But investigators discovered that the property was connected to one of Mama G's companies. They searched the records. There were transportation payments, rental agreements, hotel bookings, several names, and one recurring number. The same number appeared on multiple documents. Isaac recognized it. The same number from the old records. Maduka looked at him. "Can we trace it?" "We are trying." Then an investigator brought another document. "Sir." Maduka took it. It was a property agreement. The address was outside the city center. Isaac looked at Charlotte. This could be another location. Charlotte studied the document. Could the girls be there? "We don't know." Maduka stood. "We find out." They reached the location later that evening. The property looked abandoned. There was a high wall, an old blue gate, overgrown grass, no lights, no visible security. They entered carefully. Inside, they found empty rooms, broken furniture, dust, nothing. Charlotte became frustrated. Maybe they moved them. Isaac checked another room. Wait! Everyone turned. He had found something. A small notebook. Charlotte walked toward him. She opened it. Names, dates, numbers. She turned another page. More names. Then she saw Grace. And below Grace, Charlotte. Her heart began pounding. Why is my name here? Maduka took the notebook. He looked at it carefully. Then he said, "This isn't just a record of the girls. What is it? A record of their movements." Charlotte looked at him. "And mine?" Maduka nodded slowly. Apparently, the investigators realized that Mama G had been using the properties temporarily. She would move the girls whenever she suspected danger. That explained why several places looked abandoned. But the investigators also discovered something else. The girls were not always transported in the same vehicles. Different drivers, different routes, different properties. The operation had been designed to make tracking difficult. It was not something one person could easily manage. There were other people involved, and somewhere above them was the chairman. But Mama G remained their best chance of finding him. They needed to catch her alive. One night, Maduka's phone rang. Isaac answered. A voice spoke. "I know where she is." Isaac immediately became alert. "Who is this?" "Don't ask my name." "Where is Mama G?" The person gave a location, then said, "She is leaving Lagos." "When?" "Tomorrow." The call ended. Isaac looked at Maduka. "We have one chance." Maduka nodded. "Inform the authorities." The next morning, Mama G arrived at a busy transport terminal. She wore a simple dress. Her face was partly covered. She carried a small bag. She kept looking around. She made a phone call. "I've done everything." She paused. "What do you mean you're not coming?" She listened. Her face changed. "You promised me." She ended the call angrily. Then she started walking. That was when the authorities approached. "Mama G." She stopped. Slowly, she turned. For a moment, nobody moved. Then she ran. Mama G pushed through the crowd. People shouted. She ran toward the roadside. An officer followed. "Stop!" She didn't. She reached a parked vehicle. She opened the door. But before she could enter, another officer grabbed her. She struggled. "Leave me! You are under arrest. You don't know what you are doing." The officer restrained her. Mama G began shouting, "Call my lawyer!" Nobody answered. Then she shouted something else. "Call the chairman!" The officer looked at her. "Who is the chairman?" Mama G suddenly became silent. She realized she had said too much. Mama G initially denied everything. She claimed she was only helping girls find jobs. She claimed she didn't know where they were taken. She claimed she had never heard of the chairman. But investigators had evidence. The rescued girls identified her. Documents connected her to the properties. Phone records connected her to several people. Financial records showed suspicious payments, and the notebook contained the names of several girls. Mama G's story began falling apart. Finally, she admitted that she recruited girls. She admitted that she promised them jobs. She admitted that some girls were moved between different locations. She admitted that other people were involved. But when investigators asked about the chairman, she refused. Who is he? Silence. Where is he? Silence. Why are you protecting him? Mama G looked down. Then she whispered, because he is more powerful than me. By the time the authorities obtained enough information to search for the chairman, he had disappeared. His known residence was empty. His office had been abandoned. Several bank accounts had been closed. His phones were switched off. It appeared that he had received a warning before Mama G was captured. He escaped Lagos, possibly even Nigeria. The authorities continued searching for him, but for now, he was gone. Charlotte was disappointed. So he escaped? Maduka nodded. For now. She looked down. But Mama G didn't. Maduka shook his head. No. Charlotte took a deep breath. Then at least the girls are safe. Maduka looked at her. That's what matters. The rescued girls were taken for proper medical care. Some needed treatment. Some needed counseling. Some were reunited with their families, and some had no family members they could immediately return to. Maduka decided he would not simply pay their hospital bills and walk away. He told Isaac, "We have to help them rebuild." Isaac nodded. "What exactly do you have in mind?" "Education. All of them. Those who want it. And those who don't, vocational training. And those who want to start businesses, help them." Isaac smiled, understood. Maduka looked at Charlotte. These girls lost months of their lives. Charlotte nodded. "We can't give them those months back." "No." Maduka looked at the girls. "But we can help them build better years ahead." One afternoon, Charlotte found Grace sitting alone. "What are you thinking about?" Grace looked up. "My mother. Do you know where she is?" Grace shook her head. "I don't know." Charlotte sat beside her. "We'll find her." Grace looked at Charlotte. "Why are you helping us?" Charlotte smiled. "Because someone helped me." "Who?" "A stranger." Grace smiled faintly. "And now you're helping strangers." Charlotte nodded. "Sometimes kindness travels from one person to another." Grace looked down. "I thought nobody cared." Charlotte held her hand. "Someone cares." After several weeks, plans were made for some of the rescued girls to return to their hometowns. Charlotte decided to travel with them. Maduka agreed. They prepared several vehicles. The girls carried small bags. Some had new clothes, some had school materials, others had documents and money for their new businesses. As the vehicles left Lagos, Charlotte looked through the window. She remembered the first time she came to Lagos. She had arrived with hope. Then, the city had almost destroyed her. Now, she was leaving Lagos with several girls who had survived something similar. But this time, they weren't living as victims. They were going home. The road was long. As they approached Charlotte's village, she became emotional. She recognized the trees, the old roadside shops, the dusty roads, the familiar houses. Her mother had been waiting. When the vehicles arrived, villagers began gathering. Then someone shouted, "Charlotte!" Her mother rushed forward. Charlotte stepped out. "Mama!" They embraced. Her mother cried, "I thought I had lost you." Charlotte wiped her mother's tears. "I'm here." Then Maduka stepped out. The villagers became excited. Some recognized him immediately. Others began whispering, "Is that Chief Maduka?" Charlotte brought a wealthy man home. The elders came forward to greet him. Maduka greeted them respectfully. He didn't behave like a billionaire. He behaved like a man visiting the home of someone he respected. The villagers welcomed him warmly.
That evening, the village elders gathered. The rescued girls sat together. Their families stood nearby. Maduka addressed everyone. "I didn't bring these young women here for publicity." The crowd became quiet. "I brought them because they deserved another opportunity." He looked at the girls. "What happened to you was not your fault." Some of them began crying. Maduka continued, "Nobody should lose their future because somebody took advantage of their poverty." The elders nodded. Then Maduka announced his plans. Those who wanted to return to school would receive scholarships. Those who wanted vocational training would receive it. Those who wanted to start businesses would receive financial support. And those who needed help reconnecting with their families would receive assistance. The villagers applauded. Charlotte looked at the girls. For the first time, they were smiling. One of the most emotional moments came when Blessing finally saw her parents. Her mother ran toward her. "My daughter!" Blessing began crying. Her father stood frozen. He couldn't believe his eyes. Blessing rushed into her mother's arms. "I thought you were dead," Blessing cried. "I'm sorry, Mama." Her father wiped his tears. "You are home now." Charlotte stood at a distance. She couldn't hold back her tears. Maduka stood beside her. "You okay?" Charlotte nodded. "Yes," she smiled. "This is why we had to find them." Maduka nodded. "Exactly." Months passed. The girls began rebuilding their lives. Grace returned to school. Amaka started a small business. Blessing resumed her education. Another girl began learning fashion design. Another received training in catering. Another started selling food. They were no longer defined by what happened to them. They were defined by what they did afterward. Maduka continued supporting them. Charlotte became deeply involved in the program. She visited the girls. She encouraged them. She listened to them. And eventually, she decided to establish a small support project for young women who were searching for jobs in Lagos. Its purpose was simple: to help vulnerable young women verify employment opportunities before traveling, to educate them about recruitment scams, and to teach them that desperation should never force them into dangerous situations. Meanwhile, Mama G's case continued. The evidence against her was overwhelming. The rescued girls gave statements. Investigators presented the records. Properties connected to her were examined. Financial transactions were investigated. The notebook became important evidence. The women she had deceived were finally able to tell their stories. Mama G could no longer hide behind the image of a wealthy woman who helped young girls. Her actions had been exposed. The woman who once promised Charlotte a better life was now facing the consequences of her own choices. Charlotte watched from a distance. She felt no joy seeing Mama G suffer.
Instead, she felt relief because Mama G could no longer hurt another girl the way she had hurt her. But the chairman remained missing. For months, nobody knew where he was. Then one evening, Isaac called Maduka. "Sir, what happened? We found another lead." Maduka listened. Isaac continued. "We believe he left Nigeria." Charlotte was nearby. She heard him. "Where?" "We're still confirming." Charlotte looked at Maduka. "So, he escaped?" Maduka nodded. "For now." Charlotte sighed. "But his network is broken." "Yes." "Mama G is captured." "Yes." "The girls are safe." Maduka smiled. "Yes." Charlotte looked toward the window. "Then maybe that's enough for now." Maduka nodded. Justice doesn't always happen at the speed we want. One evening, Charlotte stood in the garden of her home. The sun was beginning to set. She looked at the beautiful surroundings. Sometimes she still remembered the girl she used to be. The girl carrying cement, the girl sleeping under a bridge, the girl hawking pure water, the girl who found a dying stranger in the bush, the girl who only had 1,100 naira left, the girl who donated her blood to a man she didn't know. That girl had no idea what the future held, but she had one thing: a good heart. And that good heart had changed everything. Chief Maduka walked toward her. "You are quiet." Charlotte smiled. "I'm remembering everything." Maduka stood beside her. "Do you regret anything?" Charlotte thought for a moment. "No." "Not even coming to Lagos?" She smiled. "That experience nearly destroyed me." Maduka nodded. "But?" Charlotte looked at him. "But it also taught me something." "What?" "I learned that dignity is more valuable than money." Maduka nodded. "That's a lesson worth keeping." From that day forward, Charlotte became more involved in helping young women. She continued her education. She supported her parents. She visited the girls. She helped connect them with opportunities. And whenever someone asked her why she was doing so much, she gave the same answer: "Because somebody once helped me." She never forgot where she came from, and she never forgot the woman she had been before Chief Maduka entered her life. Because Charlotte understood something that many people only learn after years of hardship. Sometimes, the greatest blessing in your life doesn't arrive looking like a blessing. Sometimes it arrives disguised as a difficult situation. Sometimes your darkest moment becomes the beginning of your greatest transformation. 1 year later, Charlotte returned to the village. She visited the families of the rescued girls. Grace was now doing well in school. Blessing was continuing her education. Amaka's business was growing. The other girls were also moving forward. They gathered together that afternoon. Someone brought food. Someone played music. The girls laughed. Charlotte watched them. She remembered how frightened they had once been. Now they were smiling. Maduka arrived later. The girls stood up. "Good afternoon, sir." Maduka smiled. "Sit down." One of them laughed. "Sir, you are now our father." Everyone laughed. Maduka smiled. "I accept." Charlotte laughed too. And for the first time, the painful story that had brought them together no longer felt like the only thing they shared. They had something else now: hope. That night, Charlotte stood outside her family home. The village was quiet. The stars filled the sky. Her father, now much healthier, sat nearby. Her mother was preparing food inside. Charlotte smiled. Her father looked at her. "My daughter." "Yes, Papa." "You have grown." Charlotte laughed. "I have. You made us proud." She smiled. "Thank you, Papa." He looked toward Maduka, who was speaking with some of the elders nearby. "That man has been good to you." Charlotte nodded. "Yes, Papa." Her father smiled. Then continue being good to him. Charlotte laughed. I will. There are moments in life when we wonder why certain things happen to us. Charlotte once asked the same question. Why was her family poor? Why did her father become sick? Why did she have to leave school? Why did Madame Go deceive her? Why did she have to sleep under a bridge? Why did she have to suffer? Why did she have to find a dying stranger? But eventually, Charlotte realized that she might never receive an answer to every question. What mattered was what she did with what life gave her. She could have become bitter. She could have lost her compassion. She could have ignored the girls after she was rescued, but she didn't. She remembered what it felt like to be helpless, and because she remembered, she chose to help others. Mama Go was captured. The girls were rescued. Families were reunited. Young women received education and opportunities. Businesses were started. Lives began again. The chairman escaped for the moment, but the network he depended on had been exposed, and somewhere the authorities were still searching for him. But Charlotte no longer lived in fear. She had learned that courage did not mean you were never afraid. Courage meant you continued doing what was right, even when you were afraid. And kindness did not mean you were weak. Sometimes, kindness was the very thing that saved your life. Charlotte looked toward the sky one final time. Then she smiled. The girl who once slept under a bridge had finally found a home. The girl who once had nothing had become a source of hope for others. The girl who once needed someone to save her had become someone who helped save others. And perhaps that was the greatest reward of all. Because money can buy a house, money can buy a car, money can pay hospital bills, but money cannot buy a good heart. And sometimes, one simple act of kindness can change a life forever. The end. Thank you so much for watching this story. If Charlotte's journey touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel for more African stories filled with emotion, lessons, suspense, and inspiration. And always remember, never allow your circumstances to destroy your character. Never sell your dignity because of poverty, and never underestimate the power of one good deed. Because the kindness you show today may become the blessing that changes your tomorrow. Thank you for watching. God bless you.